Hello, this is Rod Martin. In this video, we will be looking at the real climate risk America faces. America will lose big with the global warming hoax because it will not be prepared for the real problem, global cooling. It's kind of like preparing for a river flood when faced with an invading army. Not exactly the right kind of preparation. And when the government is cutting up your businesses and homes to build a flood barrier, what are they now protecting? Nothing. Destroying that which they are protecting is the height of insanity. And this is exactly what America has been doing ever since 9/11. Naming a recent so-called problem, climate change, is deceitful. Why? Because climate has been changing for nearly 4.5 billion years. That's like calling air pollution. It's a misuse of terms. But the worst part of the global warming hoax is that global warming is good, and the bureaucrats are making it out to be the bad guy. Why is global warming such a hoax? Oh, it has been warming, on and off. It really depends on where you draw the endpoints of your trend lines. The hoax in global warming is pretending that it's bad. Here's why they're wrong. Where do people prefer to live? Svalbard? Or Hawaii? Which location has the greatest biodiversity? Greenland? Or Kenya? And here's the population density by latitude. I dare you to grow crops here to feed 7 billion people. That's the problem America doesn't yet know it faces. We currently live in an ice age interglacial called the Holocene. Those who follow the trendy new Anthropocene are walking on thin ice and don't know it yet. How do we know it's still the Holocene? Because of those two little white things at the poles. Ice at the poles equals ice age. It's simple. Our current ice age is divided into two types of periods. 1. Interglacials, short periods of relative warmth, and 2. Glacials, long periods of increased cold. The average interglacial is 11,000 years, and the Holocene is already 11,500 years old. If someone tells you that the Holocene won't end for another 12,000 or 50,000 years because of Milankovitch cycles, they don't know what they're talking about. Milankovitch cycles are only part of the story. No one yet knows what all causes glacial periods to begin and end. The United Nations says man caused our modern warming. Well, they're flat wrong. We've had several warm periods, the Minoan, the Roman, the medieval, and the modern, all spaced about 1,000 years apart, going off like clockwork. As you can see from this graph, we were expecting a warming trend with or without humans and their SUVs. If you look carefully, you will see that the trend in warming peaks is downward. We're currently near the peak of our modern natural warming period. But what about all the excess carbon dioxide humans create? Would it surprise you to find out that CO2 is actually a vital gas of life? Anyone who tells you that it's a pollutant is an outright liar. Industry and automobiles pump out just as much water vapor as carbon dioxide, and both are greenhouse gases. You don't hear anyone talking about water pollution, do you? Or reducing your water footprint. Here's where we are now with CO2 levels. Here's the average for the last 600 million years. And here's the level which will kill all life on the surface of the Earth. Here's the level during the 14 million year Cretaceous thermal maximum, 4,000 parts per million, 10 times what it is today, when global temperatures were about 20 degrees Celsius warmer than today, not a measly 2 or 3 degrees Celsius. This is the level of CO2 used on the space station, and here's the level used on naval submarines. Current CO2 levels are greening the Earth. Plants are loving the feast. They grow more quickly, produce more food, and find it easier to grow in harsher conditions. Welcome to 90,000 years of frozen climate. So what happens when the Holocene ends and the next glacial period begins? First, we lose Canada. Buried under a permanent blanket of ice and snow, Canada loses as much as 99% of its real estate to the ice. Not only does America lose an important trading partner, but many Canadians will likely move south to America. The only problem is, second, America loses some of the northern states to the same problem which will wipe out Canada. This means that America loses up to 30% of its own real estate to the ice. Northerners move south. How much America loses will depend on the climate. At the height of the last glacial period of the current ice age, permanent ice covered North America as far south as Kansas. We could see this in as little as 50 years. Third, because of cooler oceans, there is less rain and more crop failures. America and the world suffer from immense droughts because cooling oceans cannot evaporate enough water vapor. Fourth, millions of Americans and possibly even billions of humans will starve from the failed crops. Fifth, industry and infrastructure will be hard hit by the cold and by increased storms. Increase? Global cooling will move polar cold closer to the equatorial heat, and that is a certain recipe for more and stronger storms. Sixth, the economy, already crippled by upside-down carbon policies, takes a nosedive. Seventh, the bankers are happy because they get to foreclose on more property and to take ownership of more businesses. By 2050, the population of America will be as low as 100 million, despite the addition of Canadians. Because every other nation is hurting from the glacial period cold, there is no one to help America out of this jam. Because America has bullied much of the world for decades, billions of people might likely be secretly happy that America is failing. Not a pretty sight to go from world superpower #1 to struggling just to stay alive in a few short decades.